Hello everyone and welcome to round 6 of the Superkick season. It's been a pretty absorbing season, and already we've done 5 rounds, well, plus the opening round as well. So we move into round 6 and we have first of all the Stars, who are 5-1, taking on the Sheep, who are 2-3. So the Stars had a bit of a shock loss last week to Is Don Is Good. And this week, just to let everyone know, Melbourne and Richmond players have buys, so anyone that has any of them will have the week off. But looking at the Stars outfit, they do get a refreshed Mycheck and Elliott back this week, playing at home, taking on, they've got the Port Adelaide side, but the Stars also have got Marshall there, who has been in pretty good form, although only kicked the 1 goal last week. Rochelle and Holmes also have been pretty ominous for them, and have been a couple of reasons why that they've been up the top of the ladder with their consistent performances, and both kicked 2 last week. Petrarca is out with his bye, and Caniglio unfortunately injured his knee, but he's only a two-week injury there. There was fears that he would be out longer. For the Sheep, they are 2-3 and had a very close loss last week to the Quiche, where Waterman kicked a career-high 6 goals, and geez, he's looked so good this year. Considering how poorly the Eagles have gone, Waterman's been the shining light, and I think the Sheep can agree that Waterman, has helped his side, be pretty competitive most weeks. Norton and West also are 2 players that the Sheep will be looking for a positive start. And Hawkins, the laid out last week, came back to bite him, so we'll be looking for him to make up for that. And Zerha is a test. He was out last week, and Lewis is also a test, so not too sure what the condition of those players are and whether or not they'll be selected. But I am tipping a Sheep upset. I just feel like the Stars, I don't know, I was a little bit worried about that loss last week. It was one they shouldn't have dropped, and I think the Sheep, this is an opportunity for them to get the upset. So the Sheep by 10 points. Our next matchup for the round is the 3-3 Powhatina Pirates taking on the Is Don Is Good, who have recorded their first victory in Superkick, knocking off the undefeated Stars outfit, and now 1-4. We'll have a look actually at the Is Don Is Good side first of all. And look, Ben King and Isaac Rankin have both been on fire lately. So I'm going to expect them to do that again. I think the Bombers matchup for the Crows is a juicy one for Rankin. I can see him kicking a multiple easily. Mitch Georgiadis has been in solid form since his return from injury, and Is Don Is Good will be very pleased that his Sydney boys in Papley and Amadi are well rested and are back from their bye, so I'm expecting big things from them. Jack Billings has got the bye from Is Don Is Good, but he's been pretty wasteful in front of the goals, kicking lots of points. So it might be a good idea, or a good opportunity for him to have a bit of a rest this week. And for the Powhatina Pirates side, Tex Walker, he finally fired up last week with 4 goals. Swallow, he put in a real extraordinary effort, actually. That must be noted, because he was the sub and came in the last quarter and kicked 3 quick last quarter goals. So imagine if he played the full game. Powhatina probably win the game that they had last week, where they, I think, lost to the Bulls. And Pal Pepper and Burn Jones are both, due for good performances. Well, Burn Jones had his real first quiet game last week, but Pal Pepper definitely needs to make it up to the coach and kick some goals. Neil Bullen has the bye, and Judson Clark has also got a long-term injury now, getting injured in the reserves last week. This game, look, I think it's going to be a real bit of a dogfight here. I don't think Powhatina Pirates are going to be up for it. I'm actually going to tip Is Don Is Good in an upset. So Is Don Is Good to upset the Pirate ship by 14 points. Our third match up is looking at the unfortunate winless Dr. Vengeance side, who were 0-5, and again had another close loss last week. I think it was about 17 points last week to the Mongolian Mangoes. They're taking on the Goldfest, who are 4-2. But probably their form is not reflecting that. I think they are struggling. Even in a win last week, they probably should not have gotten. The Vengeance, look, they've got Ben Brown missing as well as Mansell, and Liberatore, unfortunately, with his late incident last week and getting injured with his concussion, will miss. But they do have an informed Brad Close, Stengel, and Ollie Henry as well. And look, Patrick Cripps and Corey Durden may be two players as well that the Vengeance will be looking upon to, put some scoreboard pressure on the Goldfest. And Gary Rowan and Patrick Dangerfield, I'm predicting that at least one of them are returning this week. I think possibly Danger will be back for the Vengeance. For the Goldfest, look, they were extremely fortunate that Shannon Neal came in. Even the coach was a bit shocked by that with Hawkins' omission, and he was really the one that got them the win last week to a wasteful Scorpion side. Membry and Butler, the Goldfest, will be hoping that they can combine for 4 goals this week. And Banfield and Tom Emmett, the young fella at Fremantle, they should both get multiple opportunities, against, a weaker West Coast side. Fogarty, again, was very disappointing last week for the Goldfest. I think you're starting to lose patience with him. So he might be on his last chance or so, because, games will be harder for the Goldfest to win if Fogarty isn't performing. But the Goldfest, I think, should prevail in this one by 33 points and keep the Vengeance winless and a little bit unhappy. Let's have a look at our second matchup now, and it's between two sides who've had a bit of a fierce rivalry, and that's the 3-2 Scorpions taking on the 3-2 Bulls, who both got the same amount of wins and losses, but the Bulls have just got a less superior percentage there to the Scorpions, who are a little bit higher on the ladder, and unfortunately for the Scorpions last week, it was a game that they should not have dropped. They squandered chances left, right and centre. Paul Curtis kicking 1 goal, 3 and a couple on the full. Mitch Owens missing a sitter. And even Jamie Cripps at the end there probably kicks that goal 8 out of 10 times on the run with really no pressure at all from the opposition to win the game, and just couldn't do it in the end. Charlie Cameron also got suspended, but, in good news for the Scorpions side, the appeal there was a positive one for them, and with his good record, they took that into consideration, and Cameron has been let off and free to play, so that's a bit of a boost. Taberner was a bit quieter last week, but I think this is the opportunity for him this week to sort of bully the Eagles in a much easier matchup. Max King was one that also got injured, and there was, fears that it could have been a long-term injury, but luckily it just looks like he's going to be out for the week. Swikowski's also got a concussion there for the Scorpions, so he will be on protocols and out this week. And Van Ruin, Pickett and Windsor also have the bye. Going on to the Bull side, we have a look at Cyclone Tracy. He was fantastic, kicking 3 clutch goals to get a 14-point win over the Pirates last week. Hogan, McKay, Harry Jones, they've been all in pretty good nick, in good form. I think they will continue that. And Rioli, Morris Rioli, that is, Baker and Dusty all have the bye for them. Look, this game, I think there's just a few too many outs for the Scorpions this week. And I think there's going to be more attacking options for the Bulls this week. So I'm predicting them to get up by 24 points. In our final match of the round, we've got the 2-3 Viatel taking on the 3-3 Mongolian Mangoes. The Viatel had a bit of a lead against the Fortress last week, but got run down thanks to Waterman's 6 goal performance. And the Mangoes were 17-point winners over the Vengeance. Looking at the Mango side, we've got Eddie Ford, who's been a very impressive selection by him, who kicked 3 goals last week. Ben Keys finally put in a nice performance and kicked 3 of his own. Harvey Thomas and Ethan Reid have been two picks that the Mangoes have picked up in the previous couple of weeks, and he'll be looking for, goals from them, because the Mangoes aren't pouring on the goals like they, used to in this game. And in terms of their buys, they've got Campbell from Richmond, Chandler and Gawn all missing. And Bailey's actually had an injury of his own from Brisbane, and he will miss for the Mangoes for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Looking at the Vital side, they've got some really handy players. They've got Curnow, Caminiti and Higgins. They will spearhead the attack. Hipwood and Harley Reid will both support them, whilst Taranto injured his wrist last week and he will be out for a long period of time, I think for a couple of months. And Ugle-Hagan's actually injured himself as well and is missing from the Dogs side to take on St Kilda tomorrow night. So that is a bit of a loss for Vital. But in saying that, I do think Vital have a little bit more depth at the moment. I think with the outs for the Mangoes, and I think the form of the Vital players are a bit better, so I am predicting them to win by 12 points. Our BH Cup matchup this week is a little bit of the Walsh derby. It's the Walsh Dogs, who are 3-3, taking on the East Quiche, who are 4-2. So the Walsh Dogs have a returning Papley and also Mycheck, as well as Bobby Hill, who will be targeted up forward. Unfortunately, Waitman was goalless last week, and that really impeded on the Walsh Dogs' chances of winning. And they will be looking more from him this week. They play the Saints. There should be some opportunities now for Waitman, especially now that Ugle-Hagan is out. I think he just needs to get more around the ball and hopefully can do what he did a few weeks ago when he was at Mars Stadium. The Walsh Dogs do have Jack Graham on a bye, and Bailey and Chera both out injured. For the Quiche, they cracked the ton last week with a 10-point win over the Sheep. Jezza Cameron booting 6 goals. But this week it's a little bit of a tougher opponent against the Lions at the Gabba, so I'm not expecting him to boot 6 again. May only be 2 or 3 goals for Jez. Heaney, Bobby Hill and Hardwick also, are players that the Quiche will be looking at this week. But they do have some bye players in Fritsch, Bolton, Petty and Oliver, so some pretty key outs there. And some bad news actually on the injury front with Rosas from the Suns. He's got an 8-week hamstring injury, so that's really unfortunate there for the Quiche. But I still think the Quiche will win this game by 20 points, just purely because I think they've got more forward options still than the Walsh Dogs. Despite their byes and injuries, Quiche by 20. Welcome everyone to Who's Best with the Fest, as we have a look at the round 5 nominations. We have one player moving out of the top 5 from last round. Actually, 2 players from the top 5 last round who have moved out. And we've got a few new players in this week. So at number 5, we have Bolton, who has gone from number 4 to 5. And there's a good reason that he's gone to number 5, but he did perform again very well last week, kicking the 3 goals that I had predicted against the Eagles. And, his teams in both the Superkick comps would be very happy with the work that he's been doing. So he is at number 5 and holding his spot, but may be out this time next week with the bye for him and his teams. So at 4, we have Waterman. So Jake Waterman, a bit of a surprise packet. One of the things that I noticed about Waterman, even though he did kick a big bag of 6 last week and winning the game for the Fortress in the BH Cup against Vital, was the fact that Waterman's actually kicked goals in every single game this season, which is a pretty massive thing considering how poorly the Eagles have been going. Obviously they've had their first win last week, but even in some of their lower scoring games, he was still able to hit the scoreboard. At number 3, we have Jezza Cameron, and geez, what a performance last week. Booting a massive bag of 6, has been kicking multiples most weeks and probably should have had more goals as well. Giving some handballs off to Hawkins may have frustrated a couple of his coaches, but not the free smoke last week. The free smoke was absolutely off his seat, saluting in a last-minute victory there. So Jezza Cameron at 3. And number 2 is Charlie Curnow, and again, so consistent. Bagged another 4 goals at Marvel, as I predicted. and he is really close to grabbing that number one spot, which is Jesse Hogan again. Again, has kicked another multiple for the Giants, and his impact on games is just so underrated. And, he's the main reason why his Superkick teams are, remaining competitive, but also the Giants and how well they're going this season. So number one is Jesse Hogan.